Hey guys, often you ask me why I don't film inside the houses because often somebody's screaming when I do it and like run into me. So you understand it's not easy to do that. Each and every house has a private territory and some owner and stuff like this, and they don't want it to film. In fact, they don't see anything strange in what they owe, and it's strange for them to see somebody's picture and film and stuff that they own. So, okay, this is my way today. I'm starting from Tverskaya metro station and Tverskaya railroad station. So, go towards the center, and it's famous Russian street Tverskaya, and it's the continuation of the Tverskaya Street, which starts directly from the Kremlin towards the St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg was a capital of Russia for like 200 years or even more. So that's why the connection from Moscow to St. Petersburg was one of the best developed roads. But still, this area, a particular area, is just the beginning of this, Stalin's street, because Stalin reconstructed it totally. And but what I'm trying to figure out is there any proof of those houses to be based on the basements of the previously built houses and constructions of the Tartarian era. So I decided to go on the other side of the street to start with this interesting building that's hidden inside, because all those side streets contain more historical buildings, because even some of them were moved. I'm not sure about Tverskaya, but on Tverskaya Street most of the houses were moved backwards, and the new houses were built on their exact places. So I crossed the street to check this exact building, which is right now on right straight where I'm looking. This has like a 4-story building, and it's reconstructed on the first floor. As you can see, its doors are kind of elevated, a little bit lifted from the ground, and look very strange, because I don't think this is the original exit of this building, because it's very large and supposed to have some decent entrances. But anyways, maybe it's just the reconstruction, and we can see some strange windows also sticking out on the both parts of this house, the big one and the smaller one. Probably small one was built in the end of 19th century, and this one on the right was built a little bit earlier. And they both were constructed in the end of 19th century, as the history tells us. In fact, reconstructed twice. So what is hidden in front of us is just the look of the building, which tells us that something's wrong with them. And it has a dome on its roof. It probably was used for wireless electricity. So if it's correct theory, of course, because we still don't know if it's a cargo code when we just copy the ancient inventions, ancient technologies, or is it really the construction of the devices that were in use, devices were applied, implemented in this building to power it, and so on. So it's just a way to figure out for us to see. And look at this difference. This is well reconstructed house with decently made basement windows, and they don't look even like a bird. first floor because they decently reconstructed. Even if you look at them, you figure out this is not a basement, but they made so well, so non-professional view will say that it's just a basement floor. But the house that is close to it has a buried windows. At least two of them, huge windows, are buried. So this is another example of hiding. And you see the difference. That is well made basement windows, and these are buried windows. So when you people tell me, when you critics or whoever tells me that this is just the basement, this is not just the basement. It's the windows that were used in the past, and now they just, hidden from us. Sometimes they just look like a basement windows because they were reconstructed very well and create the view of the basement. But really, it's the older spaces that were reconstructed right now and looked like a basement floor, but they're actually not. And this is the ugly way to hide it. Just close this window with something on the top, and that's it. So just imagine, before the reconstruction of this ugly way, they were all probably the windows of the previous houses. As they tell us, because a lot of crap was on the streets, so they kind of moved all the streets up, or buried. In Prague we have like 7 meters of the soil on the top of the ancient streets, so they are like deep at least 4 meters. And in Paris we have a lot of undergrounds. In many cities, in the USA, in Russia is all filled with undergrounds. Moscow, in fact, has one of the largest underground system. And what they're telling us is this: the streets were rising because of the shit and crap that horses produced, and so on and so forth. Archaeologists say that the streets were rising due to the cultural air. So I don't know. I don't see any cultural air. Whenever we dig it, we see any excavation near those houses, we see a bunch of interesting things. Like if you excavate just a little bit, you see the walls of the buildings of the pre-flood era coming up, and they all in the same type of burial compound, like sand, mud and clay. So what about cultural layer? If it's all underneath those streets, so what this kind of proves that those guys' theory doesn't work, because the roofs of the buildings, the upper floors of the buildings cannot be just buried like this. The wooden houses cannot just be buried like this due to the cultural layer, because it's just, if you date them 17th or 16th century, it's supposed to be like only 3 meters deep, but the entire height of the house is more than 3 meters. So it doesn't make any sense. When you show us the tickets of the end of 19th century, second half of 19th century in those buildings, it means they were still in use in the end of the 19th century. So who knows what they really talking about, or they just bring in artifacts, tickets, books from the further periods in those buildings, and then find them and tell us this is the exact date. but still they telling us what they telling us anyway. It leads us to the thing that the mudflood was actually occurring earlier and at the end of 19th century. So this kind of makes me write about it, because I think the exact date was between 1840 and 1860, but probably it was just not, one occurrence. Maybe it was twice or three times. Who knows? It's like when you have the mining process, you gather the byproducts, which is supposed to, like dump somewhere. And when you do a dump, maybe after 3 years you do another dump, and so on. So you dump it close to the city, and each and every flood in this city becomes a mud flood, because all these enormous amounts of sand and clay and mud can be very much disturbing of the life of the citizens, because any flood is a big disturbance and inconvenience, and even deadly inconvenience, because most of the people actually don't survive those types of catastrophes if they are in the city on the lower floors and stuff like this. So this leads us to the continuation of the street. This is right now the Triumph Square, Triumphальная Square, and this house is pretty significant but it's on the other side of the road. I'll probably try to walk around those places when I'm gonna be walking right back from the Kremlin, but who knows if we're gonna find something or what. So this is the square actually where they made those archaeological sites. Right now it's all filled with recreational facilities like benches, little ice cream and hot dogs selling points. So this is like one of the main popular square for opposition protests. They often do it here, and that's why everybody is not walking in this area during these actions, because all those cops are around and not let anyone know, just grab you and for being a supporter. So we go straight to the Tverskaya. Tverskaya was one of the richest streets, as I've said before. It's made to create the path, right continuous trade path towards the St. Petersburg. So it was one of the best trading cities in the most expensive place to live here in Moscow. All those houses are built and reconstructed during the Stalin's era, which is like 50s of previous century, but some of them still are made in the biggest ones. The most large houses are still left, maybe a little reconstructed, but still left here. And some of the houses that were smaller were moved inside the streets, inside the side streets. And I'm gonna be making a further video on this, and so I'll probably show you some historical footage of that. And here we go, right on the start of the Tverskaya Street. We can see those hidden little barrier here on the left, which hides all those windows underneath this house. And this is just the plain evidence of what I'm talking about. If they had those windows in use, they couldn't just leave them for nothing. So they created something like this so they excavated the space in front of the windows and covered them with this glass ceiling so they can use it freely and don't be afraid of any rain and stuff like this. very interesting because, you know, our Scottish friend Rebel Without the Pals also shows us plenty of excavation in front of the houses, so the street level is actually very evident to be higher than the basement floor. So this just, you know, I think this exact house was reconstructed probably because it shows us two different styles, probably Tartarian style of architecture with all those columns and stuff like this, and on the top we see just, you know, poor 2 or 3 story reconstruction upgrade of this building, so-called. And also on the other side, on the other wing, as we call them, the wing of the house, we see also the continuous numbers of those windows covered with the glass ceiling. If we walk inside those side streets, I'll tell you, inside those houses, probably you can see that no entrances here from this side of the street. Only the entrances to the shops, and shop is just, you know, dead end for research, because you cannot film anything in the shops, and probably will be also disturbed to do that. So when you go inside the house, you see what's going on, and I've showed it in the beginning of this video. Every time somebody comes and asks what are you doing, this is just, you know, easy way to handle it. Most of the time they just screaming, yelling, running towards you. If there's some works or excavations or maybe restorations, you know, repairing something, they also often don't let you film anything. So when I can't film, I film. And in fact, I have one excellent footage here for you guys, but I'm gonna show it in one of the further videos, so stick around. So this is the continuous, you know, as you can see, continuous street, very popular street for shop owners. A bunch of people hanging around, even when it's just a Sunday, because in Sunday people don't like going out, so it's just, you know, the first half of the day. That's why you cannot see anyone on the streets, but a lot of cars still riding. That shows that the people, the pedestrian type of person, is still sleeping, and so not many people around. But in ordinary day, in routine days, there's a bunch of people, like a whole bunch of people, and the streets are crowded very much. Okay, so the closer to the center, the more the buildings we're gonna see. So what I wanted to say is just a big support to the guys that starting their own channels: Rebel Without the Pals, Martin Lidke, who else? There's one guy who said who named his channel just a Mudflat, something like this, so you might as well find him. He's also showing great content, great journalistic research, whatever you call it. So when I'm gonna be walking towards backwards, probably more evident places I'm gonna be filming. So this also not a great example of many evidence, but as you can see, they're just covering them like this, and this is it. So no on the front side they just, you know, cover them with this stonework, with polished rocks, looking very fancy, but on the sides they still show us the ugly work of covering those windows. So more historical buildings are closer to Kremlin. This is just, you know, maybe 3 kilometers away from the Kremlin. So not very good example of evidence. On the other side we see a very interesting colonial style building. it's supposed to have lines on the gates, so it's pretty Masonic style. So when I'm gonna be going back, I'm gonna picture it more. And as you can see, the also colonial style front, I don't say what, front balcony on the top of the building in the center of the screen right now, also very fancy. So Stalin actually created the so-called renaissance of this style in his works, in his architectural designs, and he like correlated what he saw with what he wanted to be. And probably all those high Seven Sister buildings, those tower buildings that I've showed in my videos, also were designed to be like that, so they can look like atmospheric collectors. At the same time, kind of be repeating the structure of the pyramids with the steps on the side, which are rising towards the center. So this is like, you know, very interesting style that he performed, and his architectures were actually very Masonically informed in that. And I'd say communist probably another branch of Masonic movement, which is probably the more better for the humankind because it's more fair, but still it's a Masonic unit, and it repeats the ideology of creating the world when with the total control of the masses, lack of information, lack of confidence in the people of what they really supposed to do, and still a total control, manipulation, and total slavery for their own goals, parasitic control. So but the means and the methods could be different, and I'm gonna be continuing this walk so you can see the historical center begins. And so see you later.